What's up, you guys? I'm Natasha. This is the Kitchen Garden at Shepherding Peppers Farm. We're going to be talking about common plant garden issues that you might be having currently, especially this time of year. Things like Sunscald on your pepper plants or splitting in your tomatoes. So let's go around. Let's talk about the most common issues that you might be facing in your garden, why they occur, and maybe what you can do to help resolve it. As you guys know, I harvest a lot of my tomatoes green. The timing of the orb weaver is among us, so I have to be considerate of her. I harvest a lot of the tomatoes green because of the amount of insect and pest pressure we get this time of year. Leaf-footed nip bugs, stink bugs, all of that good stuff. And by harvesting the tomato plants green, I can go ahead and skip that step where I'm getting a ridiculous amount of fruit that is damaged. Now, some people don't like to harvest their tomatoes green. They find that it takes a really long time for them to ripen inside. Tomatoes ripen based off of heat. They fruit also based off of certain temperatures as well. They like to fruit in more of a 70 to 80 degree temperature. When it starts getting over that, you're going to find that your tomatoes focus more on ripening rather than producing new fruit. So for me, if I'm harvesting my tomatoes green, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ripen them in my garage. It's the hottest part of my house. It's very, very warm in there. So by letting them ripen in the garage, they do it way quicker than if I put them on a windowsill in my house where I have the air conditioning running every moment of my life. And currently, the majority of these are Sunscald tomatoes. Sunscald tomatoes are very, very sweet. They are a bright, oh look, that is a leaf-footed nymph bug right there. This guy wants to eat your plants and ruin your happiness. Leaf-footed bug. They have these little suckers, kind of like a mosquito, and they bore into the plant, and then they can not just damage it, but they can actually kill the fruit by sucking all of the juices out of it. They will also occasionally attack the leaves and the other parts of the plant. Some people say that they particularly target plants that are diseased or struggling. I haven't seen any data confirming that theory. I'd be interested to look into it a little bit more. But they're just a common pest that we have here. If you're seeing little spots and holes in your tomatoes or in your other plants, it's quite likely that what you have is a leaf-footed bug that's attacking it and boring into it, or possibly even a stink bug. Oh, here we go. This right here, this is Sunscald. So if you live in a very hot area or even an area that gets a lot of direct sunlight, peppers need these leaves because it protects the pepper plants from Sunscald. This is basically a sunburn on your pepper, and the plant has now been weakened. The skin has died back, so this will rot. If you don't want Sunscald on your plants, you either need to ensure that you have a lot of coverage. They're very bushy, very green, or you could provide some sort of shade cloth to help deal with that. These look like baby cayennes. So this right here, this line that you're seeing, it kind of looks like somebody got cut open and then stitched back together. If you're seeing this on your tomatoes, it means that there was splitting. You're often going to find this after you've had an extraordinary amount of water affect your plants, whether that's you leaving the garden hose on just a little bit too long or you having an extraordinary amount of rainfall in a short period of time, which is something we struggle with here because we get hurricanes and tropical storms every season being on the ocean. When the tomato fruit gets a ton of water like that all at once, its cell walls are not capable of expanding so rapidly that you wind up with it splitting apart because it's trying to expand from all that water and it just can't do it as rapidly as it needs to while it's absorbing it. So it splits, and then it, like anytime you cut yourself and you end up with a scar, it scabs over. It's still perfectly safe for you to eat these. It's not as aesthetically pleasing. You can always cut that section off of your tomato plants, especially if they're larger than like a little cherry tomato. But yeah, that's what that is. Like if you're seeing purple on your plants like this, like, why is my plant turning purple? What's wrong with it? Is it dying? And it's just the process of it ripening, the coloring entering the cell walls. That's what you're having there. The jalapeno is just trying to ripen. It's a good thing, because then you can make chipotle peppers. You can smoke them and make homemade chipotle and adobo peppers, which is what we do with our ripe jalapenos. So you're growing peppers and you're finding that your leaves are starting to look like this. You're seeing some drooping. You're concerned about what's going on. Let's talk about what this could be. It may start raining in another second. Okay, so I'm going to put a little clip in here for you guys as a reference for different sort of damages that you might find on your plant leaves. It's very, very helpful when you're determining what's going on with your peppers. We're going to try sitting under a trellis so we can talk about this. Okay. If you want to think about your plants from a horticultural standpoint, you want to think about the type of environment that they're naturally going to grow in. Peppers typically would be growing in a place that's more of a desert type climate. Now, that doesn't mean every pepper is just found in a desert environment, but the majority of them are. It's very common for you to find them there versus in the mountains. It can still happen. There are a handful of varieties that grow in mountains and things like that, but most often, the most common place you'd find a pepper is going to be in a drier place. And we also know this from other research and data and for studying the pepper plant for many years, is that they don't like or require a lot of water. Giving your pepper plants too much water is one of the absolute worst things that you can do as a gardener. I'm moving the camera to try and keep you guys out of the rain. Overwatering your peppers or overexposing them to water is one of the absolute worst things that you can do as a gardener. Peppers don't require constant 24/7 moisture. In fact, they prefer that their roots dry out a good bit before they get another watering. They do like a deep watering, but every so often. If they wilt, that's okay. It's okay if their leaves wilt. They like to suffer a little bit. Even if they're just sweet peppers, they like to suffer a little bit. Although it can be concerning if you see a bit of drooping on your leaves, it's also not the end of the world. And you can also find excessive drooping and yellowing from a lot of rain. When seed companies provide planting instructions, so they'll tell you to plant your pepper plants if you are square foot gardening, 1 per square foot. 1 pepper plant per square foot is great if you live in an area that has perfect growing conditions, or if you're growing in a greenhouse where you can control the amount of water, where you can control the amount of rain. We're gonna have to carry this into the garage, and even though the rain is my favorite, it does cool you off. Okay, the rain is my favorite from the standpoint that I don't have to water, but you know, being soaking wet while you're filming also not a great thing either. So again, most seed places are going to tell you that 1 per square foot is going to be fine. And although that's true if you have the idealistic growing conditions, it's not necessarily true if you are more familiar with your climate. So a good example is where we're at here. We get a lot of rain, and you wouldn't think that Myrtle Beach, South Carolina would have a ton of rain, but I grew up in Washington State where you have this kind of constant drizzle. And we actually get more rainfall here in Horry County, South Carolina than we get per year in Washington State where I grew up. It's wild to think about because you hear Washington State and you think, you know, the Pacific Northwest, rainy, drizzly, hiking, water, boats. And all that is accurate, but here we get torrential downpours when it rains, and hurricanes and tropical storms and all of this stuff. Hi, babe. I didn't want to lose my train of thought, so I came in here to talk about it. Since we actually get more rainfall per year here, I don't want to plant our peppers a foot apart from each other, because then they're going to be responsible for absorbing all of that water that comes down. So I will actually plant our pepper plants 8 to 10 inches apart. I will crowd them a good bit. And that helps them to survive when we have a hurricane pass through or a tropical storm pass through. We have all of these other situations where all of a sudden they're getting multiple inches of rain. If we hadn't done that, we'd have a lot more yellowing and a lot more dropping on our leaves. Even now, what you just saw out there was the yellowing and the dropping of the leaves because we just had a tropical storm pass through. Something that you can do to help that is do not overwater your pepper plants. If you live in an area where you're finding that you get a lot of rainfall like we do, where it just pours inches and inches at a time, plant them a little bit closer together. When you do that, you're going to have to be more responsible for ensuring that you are giving the plant the proper nutrients that it needs to grow. Because the closer they are together, although they will support one another in the absorption of water and also as they grow taller, they're going to be competing a little bit more for the nitrogen, magnesium, and potassium that is growing within the soil. So you have to be aware of that. You have to notice if they are not growing as well, things of that nature, and then supplementing with water-soluble fertilizer like fish emulsion is a good option, or something like a 4-4-4, depending on what nutrients you have in your soil, something that you have to consider. However, consistently waterlogging the roots of your pepper plants is going to lead to them dying. So you kind of have to pick which method of growing them is going to be the best for your situation. Now, some people will tell you that if you're seeing spotting on the leaves, it's only ever bug damage. Oftentimes spotting can be a sign of bug damage. It can also be a sign of blight, fungal infections. It can even be the leaf dying. When a plant is struggling, the first step in survival is to start dropping unnecessary foliage. And that means they'll turn yellow, they'll develop spots, and they'll fall. So although you could have that issue where you're having some sort of fungal disease on your pepper plants, it's not as likely as overwatering. So again, I'll put that photo in here so you can see that has the different images of leaves and what's that showing. And hopefully that will help you. Hopefully that will help you if you're having any sort of issue with identifying what the problem is on your pepper plants. Seth is so cute. He can see that I'm in the middle of a pepper rant, and he's like, I'm just gonna come back later. He knows. Because if you stop me in the middle of my thought process, it's very unlikely to remain the same. I can't pick up where I left off super easily. That's not in my nature. Even if all the knowledge base is there, I just can't do it. So what we're seeing on a lot of our pepper plants and through here is leaves that are dropping because of excessive rainfall, tropical storm. And in irony of ironies, I'm very thirsty. I'm gonna get some water. So yeah, this collection of leaves right in through here, I'm not worried about it. I'm okay with it because of the fact that the rest of this foliage on the top looks green. It's doing well. We're seeing new fruits. I will probably go ahead and hit this with a little bit of fertilizer this week, and that will help significantly with the dropping. If you're just seeing it where it's dropping and it looks like this, go ahead and put some fertilizer down. You can kind of see it right there too. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The second I start talking, the rain picks up. So yeah, we'll fertilize this week and that will help with that quite a bit. So the majority of these peppers, these are the Troubleshooting right in through here. So these are ripening Troubleshooting right here. That one has, okay, so that's bug damage. Something got into that pepper and bit a hole in it. There's not much you can really do about that. Really, your only options are to enclose the plant so that way bugs don't have access to them. So like this right here, typically when you see browning on the leaves like this is from the plant getting scorched. It's getting too dried out, it needs water, it's getting too much sun, very much like with the peppers. This is occurring when the plant is getting burnt, which is not uncommon in a very hot area like this. Melons prefer warm temperatures, but they don't want to be burnt or roasted. All right, here's another one for you. So you're seeing this right here on your peppers. What is that? So this right here is very similar to tomatoes. It's basically the same thing where the plant is getting too much water all at once and the cell walls of the plant are unable to absorb all of that moisture. So you can actually buy peppers, like there's a jalapeno that's like this specifically. It's like highly variegated. There's a word for it. I'm not remembering at the moment. But it looks like this all over it, and all it is a jalapeno plant that's prone to cracking with water absorption. You find this a lot when the plant has had sudden intense amounts of rain and then it's just scabbing over. You can absolutely eat this. This is not an issue for you to consume the plant. It's just normal cracking. It happens when you... So this, what is this? This is powdery mildew. Powdery mildew is a fungal disease that can affect your plants. It looks like what it sounds like, powdery mildew. If you're going to go with the non-organic route, there are different treatments that you can use to treat that. If you cut the leaves off and cover the plant with it, you always have that option. So that is something that you can do to treat it. Some organic gardeners will tell you that if you cut the leaves off and you cover the plant with milk or vinegar or soap, these are ways to help preserve it. I have found that most of the time, once the plant has gotten powdery mildew, there are some steps that you can take to help it survive a little bit longer, but eventually it's going to succumb to that powdery mildew. It's just what's going to happen. But powdery mildew typically happens from excessive heat and moisture. It's like if you don't wear sandals in a public shower, that sort of thing. All right. What happens when you're seeing this on your cucumbers? That is from a pickle worm. In the midsummer, we start getting pickle worms. They will bore into your cucumbers, they will bore into your melons, and you don't really want to eat worms, so they're typically a waste. So for us, we throw those over to the sheep, and they will eat them. If you want to, you can bag up your fruit so they can't get in there and infect it. That's one way to go about treating it. I try to grow more than we need, so that way when we lose some of it, it's not that big of a deal. So your cucumbers, you're noticing that there's yellowing on them. Maybe they're even turning orange. Well, it's trying to ripen, it's trying to go to seed. Typically when your cucumbers have started to turn orange and get very bulky, looking like a young zucchini that has some odd coloring, it's trying to ripen, it's trying to go to seed. The seeds are going to be huge. They can often be bitter. It's not really something that you're going to want to eat. So at that point, instead of being disappointed, just go ahead and save it for seeds. No harm, no foul. Okay, what about curling on a cucumber? Curling on a cucumber can be from a multitude of different things. A lack of proper watering, a lack of proper pollination, a lack of nutrients in your soil, or it can be from something like a fungal disease and blight. The best thing that you can do is make sure you're watering adequately. They need a lot of water. Cucumbers need a lot of water. And making sure that you have fertilized them well. If you haven't fertilized them at all, I would make sure that you hit them with like a 4-4-4 or a fish emulsion fertilizer. That would be good. That would be my recommendation. If it's something other than that, you're looking at pests, blight, fungal disease, things of that nature. And at that point, you kind of just have to decide if it's worth it to plant new cucumbers or if it's best to spray your plants down with something that's supposed to aid with that. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned. I will see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.